Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our weekly sales call. So today we're going to talk about a few examples of some sales that we made last week. I thought that us having such a busy week last week was obviously a great sign that we're in the right place at the right time and that customers are indeed ready to adopt these new solutions. And I thought it might be best to share some of the successes from our various dealers across the country to allow you guys to learn about how they're piecing these systems together, how they're selling it, who they're selling to, and just some examples of what's making this work for other people. So let's go ahead and get started. I have 5 examples, I believe, that I wanted to share with each of you today. But before we begin, for those of you who don't typically attend these webinars, if this is your first time, these are weekly discussions. And the idea around that is to share some real stories about trial and error and what works and what doesn't work from people that really understand from your shoes. Also to establish some accountability for all of us to make sure that you're continuing to receive the ongoing information that you need to be successful on our end, and then to make sure that you guys are taking all of that information in and continuing to understand more and more about these services and how they're impacting our industry. And the consistency of it being on a weekly basis really helps improve, I think, the effectiveness of what we talk about, and just making sure we don't all talk about some great ideas and then, a year goes by and nothing's been done with those great ideas. When we realize that every week that we're here together, another week has gone by, it helps us remember that the clock is ticking, and we're already over 2 months into the year, and so we're looking at, if we want to really make some things happen, we've only got a few quarters to work with for 2013. And lastly, it's just this commitment to make sure that you are all focused on helping grow the RMR for the companies that you work for. Today we're going to be learning from each other. And something I'm going to change up, I wanted to announce to everybody. We're going to continue to do these webinars in this style, this fashion, but to make it easier for you to do this, to learn from each other and to share experiences and ask questions, for people that are doing what you're doing and are in your shoes, so you can relate together and we'll learn from each other. We're going to do the webinars in a different way in addition to what we're doing. On Thursdays, we'll offer them as a true go-to meeting, which means that your voice is heard. We can all share. We'll have common questions go throughout everybody, and everybody can share. It'll be more like a round table. So I'm going to be sending out email blasts with that information so you all can sign up. I thought that would just be the best way for you to continue to grow and become more acquainted with other people that are learning these same lessons you're learning today. So here are a few examples. Let me first describe this example, company split. Didn't really know what the right word was, but I'll just basically say that it's a large manufacturing company that had merged with a different entity, and so when that happened, this separate entity became dependent on the security infrastructure of the parent company. The parent company was monitoring any alarms that came through the system. They would dispatch people. They would send reports on a weekly basis. They would handle the management of any kind of cardholder databases and things like that. Now that this company is off on its own and they no longer have those resources, those people, those materials, those tools, they needed a way to transition to being self-sufficient, but they did not have the wherewithal to support their own security infrastructure at the scale that they were used to. So what did they decide to do? They looked to outsource, okay? So here is basically what we're doing. They had some existing AMAG hardware installed that had originally been pointing to some AMAG servers at the parent company location. Well, that needed to change. So the integrator installed some on-site servers of AMAG that would connect to the hardware that was already there. They are now taking over, the integrator is taking over the database management for the company, while we will be handling the monitoring. So mostly entry points is what we're monitoring in this particular case. I think each site has somewhere between 8 and 10 doors that we're monitoring for door force, door propped alarms. And then we're using a variety of legacy camera systems to verify those alarms when they come through. So to make sure it wasn't a real bad windstorm that shook the exterior door and triggered a false alarm, we'll pull video from they have some, I think, Axis cameras installed. They've got some old Integral stuff at one of their sites. And then they've got some newer NVR type devices as well. So I'm still even gathering the equipment list, but we're turning that site on actually this week. So I just thought that was a really unique situation, but I'm sure there's other companies that are in a similar boat. Maybe it's not that they're breaking off from a mothership, but perhaps it's something more like they have grown and they're becoming larger than they expected to be, or they don't have, the security infrastructure to support that growth, and they don't want to, go hire a whole bunch of security people. They'd much rather have a security expert kind of take the reins on it. So to give you some numbers, though, to get a feel, the first wave of this site is the national account. So there's going to be a lot more where this is coming from. But the first wave incorporates 3 locations with 50 events average per site. So we have an option for different packages. Some of our integrators prefer to bundle or blend the packages across multiple locations, multiple sites. Some of our integrators choose that they would rather have each site be sort of its own purchase order, its own leg. In case something happens at that particular location, maybe they might move, maybe there's, a reason why they want to keep it separate. But in this particular case, we allowed them to blend, and so with an average of 50 events per site, what that means is if one site has 60 and another site has 40, it won't penalize them for any overages on the per site count. It's a total event package of 150 events to support this area, this territory, this region for this client. So for the grand total, to average all this stuff together, it's $1,050 per month that this integrator is going to be collecting for this one simple sale. The next example is a warehouse for a textile company. This company, just manufactures, or I don't even actually know if they manufacture. I know they've got a lot of stuff that they build, but I think some of the stuff they also just move. They move these materials around, basically. So they have a warehouse, and it's a very large warehouse. They have several semi-trailers that come and go every day, and typically their procedure is to stock each trailer in advance for the next day. So overnight, the trailers are parked and full of material, and nobody's there. So it's a very big risk. So what does this integrator do? This integrator installed some video analytics cameras along the perimeter. The main thing that they wanted to do is monitor that perimeter. Basically, we're going to have, I think it's about 6 or 8 video IQ cameras positioned strategically. Is the rest of the facility. So they've installed Aerocont megapixel cameras throughout the rest of the facility to support high-res video, so if they need to go back and identify any employees that were seen leaving with material, things like that. I guess shrinkage was another concern that they were very concerned about. So how do they tie all this together? They're using Exact Vision to bring Aerocont cameras and Video IQ cameras into one recording and retrieval kind of tool. Just so you all are aware, if you've never done an analytics installation before, we basically guarantee the Video IQ product. So what does that what does that guarantee entail? The product is spec'd to monitor for people or vehicles. That's really what we typically see is a lot of classification of objects. In some cases, we will add direction of travel or tripwires and things like that to sort of enhance the filtration process of what alarms we receive. But in general, the two things that we tend to look for in a region of interest are people and vehicles. And if a squirrel happens to trigger an alarm through the Video IQ camera, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. We will waive that. We don't count that in your event tally. So that's something that makes us a little bit unique compared to some of the other monitoring centers out there. In addition to that, we actually will program the analytic rules for you on behalf of your engineering team. So it reduces some of that time and cost associated with getting everything set up. But anyway, for this particular site, we are primarily just monitoring this parking lot or for these semis. So it wasn't that we're not doing a whole lot of tours. Now that might change over time. We've seen companies get a taste for what we're able to provide, and then something else happens, you know, during hours where we're not monitoring or something, and they realize that perhaps they could have leveraged virtual tours or chaperones or other options to enhance their overall security. But in this particular case, what we're starting out with is a basic 25 event package, and the customer is paying $225 per month to the integrator for this account. So for $225, this company is getting basically the assurance that if anybody breaches the perimeter after hours in this area, there's going to be intervention right now. So that's for $225 a month. Imagine what their loss could have been if just one night out of a year somebody broke into one trailer. It would more than pay for this. Example number 3 is a scrap metal refinery. So in LA, we've got a dealer who had a customer that has two salvage yards, basically. And so these salvage yards have scrap metal of all different sorts and types. And I guess what they do is they take it, they melt it, they turn it into something that's sellable. And so in this particular case, they have installed PIRs and an intrusion panel that would trigger an event if those PIRs detect motion. We are then verifying the alarms through an Avigilon system. I think they're using both Avigilon cameras and the Avigilon VMS. So for 2 sites, we have we're monitoring 2 storage yards, basically. Again, they're blending the package, so a total of 100 events across both sites, and the customer is paying $475 per month. The next example is a public works facility. Basically, it's, you know, water treatment plants and, you know, different, you know, types of utility buildings in a certain region that's provided by this county. And so what we're doing is monitoring a combination of unmanned facilities 24/7 and facilities that do have employees there, but we're just monitoring after hours. We are also using video analytics in this scenario, Video IQ, and we're adding voice down on audio to this as well, voice down communication. So Video IQ cameras and encoders offer the voice over IP module automatically. So we can turn on a speaker and an amp and initiate a voice down announcement. So if somebody's approaching a utility facility, we can say, you know, excuse me to the people in this area. This is the security center, and you're entering a restricted area. And it can help ward off any kind of trespassing or vandalism that they might encounter. A lot of the problem, I guess I should say, that this facility is encountering is like copper theft and things like that. So we're monitoring to make sure that nobody's there to tamper with any of their resources. The next thing is, you know, what package are they going with for all 5 sites? Because a lot of them are unmanned and out in the middle of nowhere, we might get a few alarms here and there, but it didn't really warrant having to have an entire package dedicated to that particular facility. So we've averaged this out for 200 events per month across the board, and the customer is paying $800 per month. The next example is a rare car repair facility. So basically what you have here is an area that's semi-fenced in. About 3 of 4 sides are fenced in. There's a building where they house all of their resources and materials and tools, and then they have the actual railway that comes in with the rail cars. So that is what's causing a lot of their vulnerability today, because they have this open wall, basically, where there's no perimeter protection. And people like the idea of vandalizing rail cars for whatever purpose, whatever reason. People have fun doing it. So what are we doing about it? This integrator wanted to get some megapixel cameras in there, so that way, again, that quality image, that ability to, identify perpetrators is necessary for forensic purposes. And in addition to that, a VMS integration with Exact. It's just one location, so one site, and we're combining virtual tours with event monitoring. So in addition to doing motion detection in certain areas of the facility, we're going to conduct regular tours after hours, just to make sure that there's nothing going on in certain areas when there shouldn't be. We sold a 400 event package per month, and the end user price on that is $1,500, $1,525. So when you think about it, a lot of these different packages seem like, wow, $1,000 a month, wow, $500 a month, $800 a month. That's a lot, and it is a lot, and it's very valuable to you guys and to your employers to generate that recurring monthly revenue. But in addition to that, the main thing I wanted to get across is that customers are paying for this stuff. They're seeing value in it. If they wanted to have a guard service and they wanted to hire a professional guard, whether it's an employee or it's a service that they sub out to, it's going to be a hefty fine. Typically, you're looking at $175,000 per year for one guard 24/7, 365. So if you take that number, $175,000 a year, and you divide it into 3 shifts, and in a lot of cases we're doing after-hours monitoring. So if you consider just evening, if you say, okay, we're only going to do 3 shifts, you're still looking at over $50,000 a year that the customer is having to pay for that guard. And in a lot of cases, we're able to sell them systems, especially when we incorporate project financing, because the financing allows them to budget on a monthly basis as well versus having to have a whole lot of cash coming out all at once. But you have a customer that's paying a fraction of what it would cost to have a security guard. But in a lot of cases, they're getting better support, better service, a auditable solution where as they've defined in their scope of work. And it's providing a better service. The rail car example is actually a guard replacement example where they had a guard service coming in, and they're saving money by going to this solution, by adding equipment and going to electronic security with virtual guard services. They're saving money, and the reason they weren't happy before in general, and the reason they started investigating their options, was because the guard service that they had hired was not performing. They would come in the mornings and the guards would still be asleep. There would be light bulbs that were out that they had never reported, so clearly they didn't do the rounds in the areas where they were supposed to go. So there was a lot of frustration and a lot of damage still being done despite that expensive ticket item of a guard being on site. So I just wanted to share some of these success stories with you. If any of you have any questions about these applications or others that you are working on and how you can do the same thing and be one of these examples next week when we share some more stories. Again, keep an eye out on your email for the invitation to the new style of webinar where we're going to be doing the go-to meeting that's more interactive, where your audio is enabled. Thank you again, and hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we will talk with you all soon. All right, bye-bye.